Happy Friday, Red Sox Nation, and thank God it's almost the weekend. What's up, everybody? This is the Locked On Red Sox podcast. I am your host, Massachusetts Pirates team insider Jake Ignaszewski. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be joined by my co-host, Ness and writer Lauren Campbell today. Unfortunately, she came down with a cold, but I was joined by a very special guest who is a loyal fan and listener of the podcast. He goes by the name Jeff Runnals. He is also a contributor for BoSox Injection. And in this episode, Jeff and I give our reaction to the Trevor Story deal almost falling through due to his vaccination status, as well as debating on how we feel about JD Martinez playing in the outfield against left-handed pitchers. And then we finish talking about former Red Sox reliever Andrew Miller retiring from the MLB. You definitely don't want to miss this episode because it's a lot of fun.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We are here with a very special guest. He goes by the name Jeff Runnals, but he's also on Twitter known as Big Sox Guy. And you can find all of his stuff because he's a contributor for BoSox Injection. So definitely go and check out his articles over there. But how are we doing today, Jeff?
Jake, doing well, man. Appreciate you guys having me. It's pretty cool that the Sox are playing an evening game right now. So it's been a good night so far. My stream froze, so I can't tell if they're winning or losing right now. I think it was 4-3 last I saw, but doing pretty well, man. How about you?
Doing great, man. Can't complain. You know, I've been seeing the notifications of Kike hitting a little bit of a home run, and then also Ryan Fitzgerald. That guy's on a freaking cruise right now. Like he is just crushing balls left and right out of the park, and I think he hit his fourth home run today. That's what it was. And I put a tweet out when I saw that he had a homer. I'm like, this guy has to get on the roster at least in a bench spot at some point this season.
Yeah, man. What he's doing is very impressive right now. I'll be honest. I actually hadn't heard of him before spring training started. It was pretty cool. So I've been taking Chris Cotillo's workshop, which actually you had tagged me in, I think, at one point. But part of it is writing a feature on either an athlete or a coach or a media member. And I was able to get in touch with Mike Montville, who's the AAA assistant hitting coach for the BoSox. Mm-hmm. And one question I asked him was, who's a prospect outside of the obvious, like Cassis or Marcelo Meyer or those kind of guys? Like, who's a prospect to watch out for? And he said Ryan Fitzgerald. And I was like, okay. Cool. Let's pay attention. And dude's on a tear right now. It's impressive what he's doing.
1,000%. And, he's got a pretty inspirational story. I believe he came from indie ball. I think he's 27 years old, but, he's really being able to show what he has in front of all of Red Sox Nation. And shout out to Chris Cotillo, as most people know him, the writer for the Mexican Times, or AKA the Mass Live. If you haven't checked out his workshop, I did his workshop a year or so ago and learned so much from it and still use his notes to this day. And Chris does a great job of teaching all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, Fitzgerald, it'll be interesting to see, what happens after spring. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts in Worcester and then they give him a look a little bit if somebody gets injured or something like that, or somebody's not playing up to par. But it's been really cool to see what he's been able to do, as well as like Bobby Delbeck as well. I mean, he's been putting on a tear as well.
Yeah, Delbeck. I mean, his first at bat, he homered. First two games, he homered, I think.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I think I expect Delbeck to take a step forward this year. I mean, you look at just his second half numbers last year, really kind of after the trade deadline when Schwarber came over, which all the best of luck to Schwarber. But Delbeck even credits him for helping him out with his swing. And then like the proof is kind of in the pudding, man. I mean, Delbeck's numbers from August and September. I think I put a tweet out that, actually, I forget what the stat was, but it might have been OPS or something. Who Bryce Harper led the MLB with like I forget what it was, but Dahlbeck was like right behind him, number 2 for August and September. The dude can mash a baseball, and his barrel percentage is like 20% or something. It's like top 5% in the league or something last year. He's just got to be able to cut down on the swings and misses. And I hope for big things from Bobby this year.
I can't wait to see, what he can do at second base, continue to learn third base as well. And as well as in the outfield. It'll be interesting to see how the Red Sox really use him this season. But, we've seen him as a great personality guy around the clubhouse and get some clutch hits here and there. But so one thing that I've been trying to not get my hopes up for is that the Bobby Delbeck that we see in spring training is the Bobby Delbeck that we're going to see in the regular season. Just because, remember, I don't know if you remember, I mean, he led all the Grapefruit League in home runs last season. I'll never forget Carabas saying, "Oh, this guy's going to hit 55 home runs minimum." And, he hyped me up. I didn't think he was going to hit 55, but I thought he was going to hit at least like 25, 30. And, he got close to there. But, as you mentioned, it'll be cool to see how, with that second half success, how he's able to, really go into this season.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously spring training only means so much. We saw Sam Travis over the few years, a few years ago anyway, tear up spring training, and that never really amounted to anything. So we'll see how it translates for Bob this year. But and to your point about his positional versatility right now, second base, I don't know, especially with Story here in the fold, obviously, but I would really like to see them actually try and work Bob into the outfield because he's an athlete also. You think of first baseman, right? And you think of guys that maybe don't move so well, but that's not the case with Dahlbeck. And I didn't realize that at first, but then last year at one point, it's like, why is Dahlbeck the guy who's always going in to pinch run? And then Cora, I think, pointed out in the press conference that if you look at his sprint speed, he's like the second fastest guy on the team, which is crazy, but it's true. So, and he's an athlete too. He pitched in college. He played third in college. He played third. I think they drafted him as a third baseman, and he moved over to first. But I don't see why he wouldn't be able to play left field. It's not terribly difficult. We won a couple World Series. Obviously, I don't want to compare him to Manny by any means, but we won 2 World Series with Manny in left field. So I think Dahlbeck is, from just pure athletic standpoint, it can compete with the best of them. So I'd be curious to see if that actually works out, because I think he could bring a lot of value to the team wherever he plays, especially if Cassis is able to come up this year, but Dahlbeck is continuing his success from the second half of last season. It'd be nice if they could figure out a way to get both those guys in the lineup at the same time.
Very true. It's never a bad thing to have a lot of young guys that are very good. And I think Chaim Bloom would agree with that. Just the abundance of good young talent on a team is never a bad thing. And but I've said this before on this podcast. I always get awful flashbacks of Blake Swihart getting injured in left field anytime they try a prospect out in left field. But it'll be interesting to see how it works out. And you brought up Trevor Story. He's supposed to take up at bats in minor league games today, and he's supposed to make his debut reportedly on Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see sort of how he is able to do in the Grapefruit League and preparing for the season in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm excited for that, man. I was actually in Scottsdale over the weekend. We caught a couple of spring training games out there, but woke up Sunday morning to the Trevor Story news, at least the reported Trevor Story news. And I've been hyped ever since. And then obviously the official announcement was yesterday? It came out. So it's super exciting to have a guy like that on the team, especially if we can get his kind of production from second base now, which was such a just revolving door last year. If we can get one of the best shortstops in baseball, especially from an offensive standpoint, defensive as well, but get his production at second base, then it lengthens the lineup so much. It helps guys like Jackie Bradley Jr. to just not have so much pressure on him from an offensive standpoint, to allow him to kind of go out there and do his thing. And I'm excited for what Story can bring to this team.
Very true. And, you brought up the reportedly agreed to, because, the contract almost fell through. It was reported to today about Trevor Story not wanting to get the COVID-19 vaccine, which it's interesting that could have been the main reason why it could have all fallen through. But, he pretty much said in his press conference, it's a very personal manner. Decisions like that are kept between me and my family. And then he went on to say, but with that being said, I'm available for my teammates 162 plus. That's the main part. And we also saw guys like Xander Bogaerts, Kevin Plawecki be a little bit hesitant as well this past season. But, thank God, even though there was a 3-day wait, it was nice to be able to see him in that Red Sox jersey 2 days ago during the press conference.
100%. Almost made it a little bit sweeter because we were kind of in limbo, like, when is this going to happen? And but it's here. And then seeing videos of him getting ABs today, working on picks and stuff. It's nice to see him out there. I'm excited for it.
I hope that you guys are enjoying today's episode so far, but I just want to take a second to talk to you about Built Bar. This is the time of the year that I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really even a resolution because I enjoy eating them so much. Have you ever tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're really missing out on one of the best tasting Built Bars. Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, and they're not just a protein bar. They're a little treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite, but there's also some other incredible flavors as well, like coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. I love that one. That one's really good. And those are just some of my favorites. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. They're low calorie, high protein. You can even replace your candy bars with these. They're even better in my opinion. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. So go to BuiltBar.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. They're high protein, low calorie, high fiber, and low carb. And we got a special offer for you. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at Built.com. And I also want to thank everybody so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen every single day. Now make sure to go and check out Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So now let's get back to today's episode. Very true. And, talking about guys playing out in the outfield, like we were talking about with Dalbec, it was reported today that Alex Cora said that JD Martinez is going to be playing the outfield against lefties, either left field or right field. And I was a little bit frustrated when I saw that tweet because it sort of shows that the Red Sox are a little bit desperate. I don't like seeing JD Martinez in the outfield, just mainly because of how much it affected his hitting production. Over 35 games last season, hit 222 when he was playing in the field, and he's our primary DH, and I believe that he should stay there. And I think this team has enough versatility to be able to find a guy to replace him in the outfield. But we just have so many infielders and not enough experienced guys to play that outfield position.
Yeah, it is interesting to see that. I think the first thing I thought was, man, he better stay away from second base when he's jogging out to the outfield, because that was obviously it was in Washington last year when he rolled his ankle on second, then he couldn't play in the wild card game. We need to avoid that at all costs. But I also think from that standpoint, Cora, two things. One, Alex Cora is only going to speak about the guys on his team. He's not going to – there's definitely still the possibility that Heim could find somebody else to bring in, whether the free agent market's kind of thin now. I know Conforto's still out there, but that doesn't really solve your right-handed bat in the outfield. Something would probably have to come via trade. And then at the same time, I don't think Cora wants to put the pressure on a guy like Dalbec. Well, and he'll be the first baseman until probably Cassis is ready anyway. But a guy like Dalbec or a guy like Christian Arroyo, who hasn't ever played the outfield. So I think Cora doesn't want to put the pressure on those guys saying, look, we're relying on you right now, because, you never know how a guy can react to that. So based on the roster as it currently is, JD is probably your fourth outfielder. Whether or not that holds true, maybe it does the first couple weeks of the season until they figure something else out. But I can't quite believe that that's going to be the long-term solution here, but we'll see.
It's weird talking about the Red Sox picking up a guy either through trade or free agency to fill in that outfielder position when we're 2 weeks away from opening day. I feel like obviously since the lockout has ended and with spring training, everything has just been so fast. And I mean, we'll see how JD does. I mean, we've seen him over the last 2 years in the outfield. There's some good catches. There's some where you want to cover your eyes, but we'll see how he does. But hopefully they can find a replacement for him very, very soon. But moving on to somebody who you brought up earlier, who you were, when we put out our tweet about breakout candidates for 2022, you were the only person that brought up Jackie Bradley Jr. And he's somebody that you would think, with how much impact I believe he had on Red Sox Nation when he was with the team, people would have been a lot more excited for him to be back. But it was with how awful he was with the Brewers last season, hitting 163 batting average with. And I saw the stats, and I didn't realize it was this bad. 132 strikeouts and only 63 hits with the trade for Hunter Renfroe. But I'm curious, why do you have so much confidence in him?
Yeah, I mean, so when I say breakout player, I don't think Jackie's going to come out here and have a career season. He could, we'll see, but that's not necessarily what I mean by that. What I think is going to happen is that I think he'll be able to regain his form from when he was in Boston. Maybe not. I think it was 2016 when he hit like 26 home runs. I think that was his best year in a Sox uniform. I wouldn't expect that. But if he can come back and if he can hit 230, 240, hit 15 out, maybe drive in 60 or 70 at the bottom of the order, I mean, that would be huge for this team, because at the end of the day, again, going back to the Story signing, getting production out of second base like Trevor Story can provide, Jackie doesn't have to do a whole lot to justify his spot in the lineup. All he has to do is go out there and play the defense that, as Red Sox fans, we know he's capable of doing. I mean, he was arguably, he might be the best defensive center fielder this organization has ever seen. Definitely in my lifetime, which, I mean, isn't saying a whole lot. But from a breakout player standpoint, yeah, I'm not saying that he's going to come out here and wow everybody from an offensive standpoint, but I don't expect him to hit 163 again. I think if he can come back, if he can hit 230, 240, bat ninth and play Gold Glove caliber defense in right field, that's all we can ask for. I'd be thrilled with that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, when we saw Alex Cora get asked about it around a week or so ago at the start of spring training, he mentioned, we have a lot of ideas for Jackie Bradley Jr. on how he can reclaim his success at the plate. And, we've seen how good he can be in the past, but it's unfortunate for a guy who, he doesn't have the build that you would think for somebody to hit out 15, 20 home runs. But, if he's able to do what he's done so far, spring training, be able to hit those opposite field hits to left field, maybe get some off the monster, get lucky a little bit. I agree. I think it would be good for him to hit 230, 240. And with that Gold Glove defense that we've continued to see him have in a Red Sox uniform, I'm excited for the acrobatic catches to be back. We'll most likely see him in right field. It'll be interesting to see if he makes any robbing home runs over there next to the pesky pole, or if he, does some things that we saw Renfroe do last year and throw out some guys at home or throw out some guys at third. I think Red Sox fans would definitely feel a little bit better about the trade that they made for sending Hunter Renfroe over to the Brewers.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see what Jackie and Kike can do together in the outfield as well. That'll be a lot of fun to watch. And then also, let's also not lose sight of the whole reason kind of behind that Renfroe trade was also bringing in the guys like David Hamilton and Alex Binelas. I think Binelas, Sox Prospects has him at 18, I want to say, and David Hamilton at like 26 right now. Those are two guys, whether their future is with the big league club or not totally sure. For Binelas, I don't know. I mean, it depends on if Dever stays at third or if Xander ends up moving to third based on what happens in the next couple of years, if both guys are still here. But the trade was all about those two guys, really, I think. And then on top of it, you bring back Jackie's glove. And then I think also when the trade happened, Heim had his sights on bringing in a guy like Trevor Story. He said the whole time that that's the guy he wanted. Whether or not it was actually going to come to fruition or not, depending on everything else that happened, who knows? But it ended up working out. And in hindsight, I love the trade. I love Jackie. I love Jackie's defense. But I think really it's about these prospects that they brought back that can open up doors for the future. Whether it's, if these guys need to contribute to the big league club, they say David Hamilton might be the best base runner in the organization. The guy can fly and he's smart. And he showed it already this off season, this spring training. So we'll see. But overall, I like the trade. I'm happy Jackie's back. And if he can be decently productive from an offensive standpoint, again, he doesn't have to be anything spectacular. Just go out there and play defense. And I really like where this team is at.
Completely agree. And I remember seeing a little poke that Hamilton got, looked like a sure double, and then he made it into a triple real easily. And, he's got lightning speed. I believe he stole over 50 bases last season. I don't remember the Red Sox having a guy who can steal bases like that since Jacoby Ellsbury. So it'll really be interesting to see how he continues to develop, as well as Pinellas, like you mentioned. I mean, he just got drafted in 2019. So it'll be really interesting to see, this past season. So it'll be really interesting to see how his back continues to develop. He's got the power. He just needs to work on his defense a little bit more. But, transitioning into a small move that the Red Sox made, Chaim Bloom loves that waiver wire. He does some magical things with that waiver wire. Sometimes it works, like we saw in 2020 when he picked up Christian Arroyo. Sometimes it doesn't, like we also saw in 2020 with some of the awful pitchers that he picked up. But the Red Sox claimed Ralph Garza, who was actually designated for assignment due to the Carlos Correa signing over there in Minnesota. And they also designated pitcher Kyle Tyler, who they actually claimed 2 days ago. Looking at Garza, he's a 26th round selection from the Astros in the 2015 draft. He made his MLB debut last season in over 30 and a third combined innings with Houston and Minnesota. He had a 3.56 ERA, And I think, as well as with the Kyle Tyler signing, also you could point to the Derek Holland signing. The Sox are just trying to build up some depth, trying to build up some pitcher depth. If there's some injuries, potentially if there's another COVID outbreak of some sort. And I think this is a small move in the grand scheme of things, but we could potentially see him be called up at some point this season.
I think it's intriguing. I didn't know a whole lot about Garza before the signing happened, or the claim happened rather, but looking at his numbers, I think I tweeted it out today, just from his numbers with Minnesota after he was claimed. He had a whip of 1.03, ERA of 3.26, 15 strikeouts to 7 walks, only in 19 and a third innings. But, those are respectable numbers. He throws from 2 totally different arm angles, which is wild. I think Stats pointed it out. Red Sox Stats, I think, was who pointed it out, that it looks to be righty versus lefty. That's like the difference as to what his arm angle is. So who knows? It's an intriguing option at the end of the day. Just like you said, Jake, I think it's all about depth for Chaim Bloom. That's what it is. That's what he did in Tampa. That's what he was a part of building. And you compile so many guys, and then 1, 2, 3 of them pan out. And it really kind of becomes a numbers game. But Garza is an intriguing prospect. I think they immediately optioned him to AAA. I think he'll probably start the season there, and then be a depth guy. And we'll see. There's a lot of options, because I think the biggest thing right now with the Red Sox, after the Story signing and solidifying second base and the offense, I feel like they're still missing that right-handed arm in the bullpen. I guess it sounds like Whitlock, even though they were saying they're going to stretch him out, it sounds like he'll probably be starting in the bullpen with Houck in the rotation right now, while Sale's hurt. Maybe that'll change. I'm not sure. And then obviously you got Matt Barnes too, who was an all-star last year. And then we all know what happened after that. So we'll see what happens with him. You got Sawamura coming back if he can stay healthy. Same with Brazier. But outside of Whitlock, none of those guys really strike me as necessarily the go-to guy. Barnes has the potential to be it. Again, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I'm confident he'll be able to bounce back from his second half, but we'll see. But I think Bloom is just loading up on as many bullpen arms as he can and trying to figure out which guys are going to stick.
I hope that you are enjoying today's episode so far. I just want to take a second to talk to you about BetOnline. It's that time of year again, as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports, scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. And if you have not checked out BetOnline yet, in my opinion, is the best betting site that there is out there. They make it really easy for you to understand different betting terms as well. They're a great resource for understanding what you're actually putting your money into. And in my opinion, out of all the betting sites, they have the best odds that there is out there. So you can make the best money off of all these different games and things that are going on betonline.net. So definitely check out BetOnline because that is where the game starts. So now let's get back to today's episode. And Chris Henrik said it on the episode yesterday, quantity over quality, which when you're talking about Derek Holland and some of these signings of who haven't been 100% proven, like Kyle Tyler as well as Ralph Garza, you got to have the quantity over quality at times to be able to have enough guys to be able to pick and plug, see which guys work, see which guys don't. But that's really interesting that he has two different arm angles. I think Heim not only loves to look at the analytics and the stats, but when guys have interesting things like that, he's like, you know what? Let's try this out and see how we can make this guy even better.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of the Chad Bradford scene in Moneyball when like, oh, but this guy throws so weird, but guys can't touch him because of that because they haven't seen it before. So it's it's interesting. It's an intriguing option, and we'll see if he ends up making the big league club at any point. But it's just another guy that gives the Sox depth and that Cora might be able to utilize.
Very true. And, moving on to a guy who had an interesting arm angle during his MLB career, talking about reliever Andrew Miller, today retired from the MLB after 16 seasons. And, it was really interesting looking back at his career. Got a little bit of a flashback of, how bad he was when he first started with the Red Sox in 2011 and how the Red Sox really helped him sort of reclaim his career. Looking at when the Sox picked him up in 2011, he was a starter making 17 total appearances with 12 starts. But over that time, he had a 5.54 ERA. Then he transitioned to a reliever in 2012. And after that transition, had a 2.78 ERA over the next 3 seasons. And he's honestly the only reason why we had Eduardo Rodriguez on the roster. Most people forget that he was traded to the Orioles for a half a season for Eduardo Rodriguez. And I'm gonna give you a little bit of trivia. Who did Andrew Miller sign with after he left the Orioles?
The Yankees.
You got it. Yeah, we signed with the Yankees, and then went to obviously the Cleveland Guardians now, but the Indians before. But and then people also forget too that he was part of that Miguel Cabrera trade back in 2007 to the Tigers.
I didn't actually realize that. So that's an interesting fact. But yeah, man, it was surprising actually to see that Andrew Miller retired, especially after how active he was during the lockout negotiations. But I think that just speaks to the character of a guy that he is. I doubt that the retirement was something that he just kind of came up with. I'm sure he's been thinking about it for a little while. So the fact that he still remained one of the guys heavily involved in those negotiations while we were all up on Twitter, refreshing, waiting for the next update. Andrew Miller was one of the guys that was kind of in the heart of it. But yeah, that, the Sox, I think, turned his career around, at least helped to. He was filthy out of the bullpen, man. I mean, the way Francona utilized him with Cleveland during that playoff run that they had, Andrew Miller was untouchable. He was kind of a game changer in terms of how the bullpen was utilized. He's one of those guys that allowed Francona in that case to turn to the bullpen a little bit quicker than managers had prior to that. Kansas City was also part of that at the time. It's a separate thing, but Andrew Miller was one of those guys who in a jam, you could turn to him and he was lights out, whether it was a lefty or a righty. Andrew Miller was a very, very tough guy to hit, especially once he transitioned to the pen. And then also back to his time with the Sox, that was probably the best move Ben Cherington ever made. Granted, Andrew Miller went on to have a great career, but to get Eddie Rodriguez for a half season of Andrew Miller, Erod was a great guy here. I think Sox fans will miss him. I think there's a lot of debate as to whether Heim should have brought him back or not. I'm not totally upset that he didn't, but I think, he's good, but he was a little inconsistent, I think, other than his innings. Erod was always out there to give you innings, but I think that's probably the best Red Sox move that Ben Cherington had made, at least that comes to mind initially.
Completely agree, especially during that 2014 trade deadline. That was also the same trade deadline they traded John Lester, John Lackey. We all know how those trades certainly worked out. Kelly definitely worked out of the pen, but not so much from Alan Craig. I remember when we first got Alan Craig on the Red Sox, I was really excited because he was
I was
good.
too.
He was
actually
good in 2013 with the Cardinals, and he was a good young player. And then he sort of just fell off the face of the earth. But yeah, going back to Andrew Miller, it was really cool to see how much he was able to evolve as a player after he played with the Red Sox. But it was tough for me, quite honestly, when he had the beard and the long hair, to go and see him all clean shaved over there in New York.
Yeah. That's never, especially coming from Boston, that's never something we like to see. But best of luck to him. I'm sure he's got some plans for his retirement. I hope he enjoys it, and he had a hell of a career, so he deserves it.
Couldn't agree more. And last thing for you here, Jeff, the one thing that we've been asking our guests, and we're going to ask them up until the season starts, what is your 2022 Red Sox record prediction?
I think they're going to win 93 games.
I like it.
We'll see how that plays out. The Trevor Story signing really has me hyped up. Obviously, the Chris Sale situation, I don't know. We'll see how that ends up playing out, because I don't know if you've pitched in the past, but I pitched through college, not at necessarily a super high level, but at any level, if you're pitching and you have a fractured rib, I never did, but I cannot imagine how you can throw with that. You can't. It's like it's impossible. And on top of it, it's a stress fracture, which I'm obviously not a doctor, but my understanding is that means it probably happened like over time, right? Like repetition or something. So I don't know. That's weird. We'll see if he can fully recover from that, or does that just mean it's prone to happening again because of the fact that, is it something to do with the way he throws that is just causing torque on his rib cage that caused it? I have no idea. But depending on if Sale can be healthy, that's obviously going to play a direct role in that. But I got them at 93 wins. We'll see what happens. I'm excited for the season, though. And I think, they surprised a lot of people last year. And I think coming into this season now, the roster looks a lot better than it did coming into the season last year, if that makes sense. But
yeah, I know what you're saying. I had him at I said like 90, 93, but if I'm going to do a little bit of a compromise, 92, I'll say. But especially with the Chris Sale extension, looking back to 2019, I don't think any of us would have thought that it would have gone this badly after the Sox signed him to, I believe it was 5 years. I forget the exact figure, but he's making $30 million a year. And who would have thought that he would have, had Tommy John surgery, had this stress fracture, and not really lived up to the expectations of how dominant he was through, the early parts of his career.
Yeah, I'll say I don't think him needing Tommy John wasn't a huge surprise, probably to most of us, based on just really his arm action and the fact that he wasn't able to hold up for a full season for probably like the last 3 or 4 seasons.
Right.
So, and you look at guys like Evaldi, who he's had it, twice, I think. So maybe the first time it didn't go so well, but guys nowadays can come back from Tommy John throwing even better. So I was really excited to see what Sale could do this year. The blessing in disguise is that if he does come back from this stress fracture and is able to come back healthy, the blessing in disguise is that it's a little bit more rest for his arm. So now he doesn't have to pitch a whole season, kind of like last year, but this year it's not an arm injury either. So his arm will be healthy. He comes back maybe May or June. I'm not sure exactly what the expectations are there, but if he can come back and then get ramped up and be Chris Sale, that honestly actually might be better than if we tried to throw him out there for an entire season. So we'll see.
Very true. And for those of you who didn't have the opportunity to listen to Lauren and I's episode talking about the breakout candidates, that was actually Lauren's breakout candidate. Yes. We can all cross our fingers that becomes a reality. And hopefully this is the season where pitching isn't the Achilles heel of the Red Sox, which it has been. I can't remember a time where I felt confident about the Red Sox pitching over the last 5 to 6 years. But really, really appreciate you taking the time today, Jeff. And for people who want to go and check out your stuff, who want to go and support you, where can they find you?
Big Sox guy on Twitter. That's me. Catch me there. Been writing, like you said, for BoSox Injection a little bit. Possibly a couple other things in the works at some point here, but
Perfect.
that's TBD. But for now, follow me on Twitter at Big Sox guy. Love to interact with everybody out there. Red Sox Twitter is very opinionated, as am I. So it's a lot of fun. So catch me out there.
Yeah, definitely go and follow him over there. He does some great stuff over there on Twitter as well as on BoSox Injection. And, I'm going to end it how I've ended the last few episodes. And let's go Sox. I hope that you guys did enjoy my conversation with Jeff and been loving these episodes with all these different guests, because get ready. We're going to be doing the same thing for the next 2 weeks leading up to the season. We're trying to get tons of different people from Red Sox Twitter, as well as reporters, former players, on to get you guys as excited as possible for the Red Sox season, as well as get you guys as informed as possible, so you are a very knowledgeable Red Sox fan, as well as entertained with all this different Red Sox content. But I just want to thank everybody so much for supporting the podcast as much as you have, and for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen every single day. Now go over and make Locked On MLB your second listen. It's hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call him Sully. He brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues, past and present. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And what's also free and available wherever you get your podcasts is tons of all the other great podcasts that are on the Locked On network, such as Locked On Yankees, Locked On Orioles. They also do NFL, NBA, college. So definitely go and check those out, because Locked On Network is your number one source for all your sports information. But as I mentioned, thank you guys so much for taking your time to listen to this episode. We really do appreciate it a ton. But I want to hear your thoughts on all these different Red Sox topics that we talked about today. On Twitter, tweet us at LO_Red Sox, because we want to engage with you guys. We're trying to make this podcast the most fan-engaging Red Sox podcast that there is out there. So either shoot us a tweet, send us a message. We would love to hear from you. And if you have not yet, go over and follow us over there. As I mentioned, it's LO_Red Sox. Also follow myself over on Twitter. It's at Jake Iggy, as well as my co-host Lauren Campbell. It's La. That's 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. And as I mentioned at the start of this, we have some very exciting guests for the next week or so. So definitely buckle up for next week and get ready for some great Red Sox podcasts Monday through Friday. That's right. 5 episodes a week are back, and Lauren and I couldn't be more excited. But really appreciate everybody taking their time to listen to this episode. Be well, take care of yourself. And lastly, love yourself a little bit. Don't be so hard on yourself, but take care, guys. I'll see you guys and talk to you guys next time.